Hello, today we're going to solve the JavaScript part of exam 9626 paper 4 from May-June 2023 from Cambridge International AS&A level, Information and Technology. JavaScript is normally at the end, task 4. So let's read what they want us to do. So it's open stop motion animation in a browser and a text editor. As always, I recommend this. I recommend you to do this first to see what we have, what they've provided us with. So let's open this in a web browser. So I have task 5, a title, an image, and a button which should start the animation. So fairly simple. And then let's open it in a text editor. Okay, so I've got the title, some CSS here. That's the head. I have the body with a title, another title, a table where you have the image, and the bottom. Okay, which is supposed to activate a function which is not here. So the web page must show a looping stop motion animation that starts when the start button is clicked and displays each of 3 images for 0.1 seconds, 1/10 of a second. The animation must loop indefinitely. 1 second equals 1,000 milliseconds. Open animate.js in a text editor. Amend the stop motion animation to use animate script. Complete the animate function and the timer function to cycle through images, displaying them at the image display bookmark in the HTML file. Okay. So that's my first task. Basically, the JavaScript is going to be in a separate file, which I'm going to open right now. And when I click the button, that's going to cycle between indefinitely through 3 images. And each cycle has to be 0.1 seconds. Okay, so let's look at the JavaScript file. Open it. And it's got a function animate, an internal function called set interval timer 1000. This will call the timer function. Units are milliseconds. And then there's another function inside animate, which is timer, which is right now empty. Okay. And it should display the images. Okay, so first thing I see here is that I have an opening bracket here and an opening bracket here and no closing bracket. So I'm going to solve that because that's going to give me an error. So that's the first thing. Before I save it, I want to, well, no. So those are the first things. Okay, you need the closing bracket, so that will, you need the closing bracket so you get an error there. The button here is going to call my animate function. My animate function will call the timer function every, and this is the unit of seconds, and every unit of time I tell it to do so here. And I've been told the unit of time, it's got to be 0.1 second. So 0.1 second in milliseconds is 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be 100 milliseconds. So I'm going to remove that. Okay. If I check this, 100 divided by 1,000, 1, 2, 3, 0.1 seconds. So that's the time. So that's the first thing I should do here. Okay, secondly, if I click on the button, it's not going to recognize my animate function because the HTML and the JavaScripts are not linked. And this is something that I'm often asked for in the exam, how to link a JavaScript and GSS, an HTML and a JavaScript file. So it's very easy. You do the same thing as if you were adding a script, but you're going to add a source here, just as like when you're adding an image. And I'm going to put the name of the JavaScript file, which is called animate.js. Every time you add a source or something similar, remember it has to be in the same folder as the one you're using, okay? As the HTML file. It has to be in the same folder as the JavaScript file. How do I know if I've linked this correctly? Well, basically, I'm going to put an alert here. So I'm going to add it here. My window.alert. That seems to be correct. And that's working. By the way, if you want to be faster, not for the exam because it should be window.alert, but if you want to work faster, I'll give you a tip. The alert works without the window. Okay, so my HTML and my JavaScript files are linked. Okay, when I load the HTML, it is loading any JavaScript on that file. Perfect. So now I have to start with the loop. It has to loop through 3 files. For that, I need a counter. Okay, so I'm going to use a counter variable. I'm going to declare it, and I'm going to just start it with 0. Okay, and then depending on how much depending on the value of counter, I have to display something else. So I have to do a loop there, and I could use the while, I could use the if, but as this is going to display a different image every time the case, depending on the value of case. The easiest thing for this is to use the switch loop, because the switch, what the switch does is it allows me to put values depending on the value of the variable. So switch counter, the switch is going to depend on the counter, and you have the switch here in the W3 schools. I always recommend you to use this as a reference. And as you see, you have switch, expression between the variable between brackets, and then between the key brackets you have case, and then whatever you need to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a case, start with the switch. What cases do we have? Well, case 0 would be the first one. Then we have case 1, the second image, case 2, the third image. Okay. What do I have to do if it's the first case? I have to display the first image here. Where do I have to display it? I have to display it here. Let me check the at the image display bookmark. Okay, yeah. So here. So image display is an image, and as a source it has this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically change that source. And how do we change that source? Very easily. Document get element by ID. I'm going to call that ID. Remember, get element by ID allows us to pinpoint some ID in my HTML. And then I can do various things. What I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to change the source there. And if it's if the case is 0, my source is going to be the first image. If the case is 1, it's going to be the second image. And if the case is 2, it's going to be the third image. 0, 1, 2. Okay. Some students ask me why I indent all this. It's for me to know exactly which thing is inside which part of my code. So I indent things whenever I know the switch inside is inside the function, so I do some indent. The case is inside the switch, so I do some indent. It's clearer to it's a good practice because it's clearer to understand that. Okay, so if I do this, this is not going to solve everything in the program, because they asked us to loop indefinitely. This will stop when case equals 2, but I'm just going to check it works. Right now, if I click, it doesn't seem to be doing anything, and it's giving no error. So I like this because I can show you how to debug this. How do I debug this? I need to know what part is not working. So I'll do an alert here and see, just check if my function is still working. That's working. I'll move that alert. And for example, I'm going to check if it works here. Okay, so what is happening here is that I'm not adding counter, so I'm not increasing counter. So what I'm going to do is counter equals counter plus 1 on every step. Okay, so when I start the function, it starts with counter equals 0. It gets here, it shows the first image, and then counter equals 2. Counter equals 1, because it's added counter plus 1. Okay, the function is called again, counter equals 1, so it goes here. And I'm getting no error. That normally means you've got some of your commands are incorrectly spelled. Check your spelling. And if you see this, I wrote it very quickly, and I wrote SCR instead of source. Okay, remember that if I start writing here, my Notepad++ helps me with that. So my bad, but at least it helped me to show you how to debug something which is as important in the exam, because it will happen in the exam. Okay. And now, on each one of these, it's good to do a break to finish the loop, because I don't want it to go on with the loop, except the last one, okay? Because in the last one it's going to stop. So, so let's go over the code, counter, the case, the change of the source, counter plus 1, the break on each one, and that's it. If I reload now, it does the 3 images, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I still haven't finished because it says it wants it indefinitely. So how do I do that? Well, at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call my animate function again. Once it finishes the loop, it's going to call the function again and start all over again. So let's reload that, start, and that's working pretty smoothly. Perfect. Okay. So that would be part 1. You would have to save the animation as spiral animation, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to jump that right now. And then they say, edit your solution to include a button under the start button. Add code so that clicking on the button stops the animation. First thing, my HTML has to have another button which says stop. Let me check if that worked. Perfect. So stop is going to call another function, which is called stop. I'm going to use something that we've used in previous solved exams. And the function stop is basically, notice that when I wanted to stop the animation, I reloaded the page. So that's what I'm going to do. Easiest way to stop it. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to call a function stop, and the function stop is going to use the code that we already know, which is window.location.reload this, start, stop. See, it reloads the page. Start, stop. Easy, working. So now I save the animation, blah, 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 finish the exam, got all the points.